I'm not seeing Jagdeo for 3 weeks. I don't know what is going on with Mr. Jagdeo. I'm not seeing Jagdeo. Jagdeo, we need to hear from you, sir. We're not hearing from you, Jagdeo. Jagdeo, we want to know what is going on.
That may well be the sentiments of Mr. Azadeen Mohammed, because we honestly, many Guyanese will be thrilled if the Vice President never shows his face again in the political arena, in the political domain, or in the governance of this country. It has become quite evident to many of us that the Vice President is a major part of what is going on in this country, major part of the marginalization, the inspirer of injustice and marginalization and manipulation of our system. To many of us, it is evident. There are a couple of people in this country that if we could never hear from them again in the political arena, and they would just allow some new, fresh blood that has an empathetic heart and a humanitarian spirit that is going to develop this country, take it over. The Vice President Jagdeo, the Attorney General Anil Nandalal, the Minister with responsibility for finances Ashni Singh, Ms. Gail Teixeira, these older ministers, they need to just stay out of politics at this point. I can't understand why is it the opposition leaders so fixated on hearing from the Vice President. The Vice President spreads is a bunch of malarkey, a bunch of manipulation, a bunch of propaganda, long-witted literature made to imprison the minds of the people that have no logical thinking and spread a narrative and script a narrative to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. I personally have been saying, the way the Vice President back in 2019 and 2018 and 20 would have been crying out.
They sold us out to the foreigners. The oil companies, every time there is a find out there, our people should be sad because nothing comes our way. We are going to renegotiate those contracts because that's not what we had in mind. When we were in the early days, we were coaxing the people to go along there.
And then got into power and then sided with ExxonMobil, and then stopped fighting for the renegotiation of any contract for that matter. When we saw that, I personally, Eternity Enterprise been saying the Vice President should bow his head in eternal shame. The fact that the Vice President isn't out on the public domain, it is better for this country. The fact that he isn't saying anything politically, it is better for the country. Because at least now, we have one person that is less scripting a narrative against the Guyanese people. I can't understand why Mr. Mohammed want to hear from the Vice President. Now it's what I'm saying also. I realize the slacktivists of One Guyana, I realize Miss Manik Chan, she made a post on her page that Mohammed is obsessed with the Vice President. Well, the Vice President is obsessed with Azadeen Mohammed as well. So, one hand wash hand, make hand clean. I watch the Guyanese critic shouting, everybody want to know with the Vice President then. Here's the thing. The Vice President is a man just like all of us are men. And, the Vice President would want to script a narrative and make it seem as if he doesn't go through stuff. He doesn't go through illnesses. He doesn't go through mental breaks. But the Vice President is just a man. He's going through wherever it is he's going through. And he's decided to remove himself from the public domain, the political domain, for a while. And I don't know about you guys, but Eternity Enterprise for once welcome it. I do believe if President Ifran Ali was left to run this country, if our girl Priya Manik Chan was left to do her thing the way she wanted to do it and left to their own devices, I believe this country would be in a totally better place than it's in today. The President would have already acceded to many of our acts because the President, in his heart of hearts, he wants to be a good president. He wants to be a president for the people. He wants to be the person that changes the lives of many Guyanese. He wants to be the president that is responsible for eradicating or cutting down the poverty percentage in this country by a great lot. But it has come to my realization that some of these older guys that I've mentioned before, these guys are the problem with everything that is wrong in this country. The monopolization of our country, the antithesis of fairness, justice and equity is the Vice President. If he wasn't that, you're telling me for the 30 years the Vice President been in positions of power in this country, there wouldn't have been real transformation for poor people? There would not have been real transformation for the marginalized communities? Just look at what's going on ever since the vice president, and that is a long time, since 1998, and he's been in positions of power 95 and all of these years. Ever since the vice president has been in power, his best years would have been his fourth year in presidency and his second year parts of it. As time continued to fly by, it's like the vice president got more and more cruel. I've never heard the vice president came out and speak about anything that will across the board change the lives of Guyanese and will across the board develop this entire country. Everything I heard the vice president say, ever since I started paying attention to him, it was all about manipulation, all about political and personal aggrandizement, and all about making sure that his party is painted in a good light. I've never heard anything come from the vice president that benefited all of our Guyanese brothers and sisters. So the fact that the vice president isn't out in the public domain for the amount of time that he hasn't been in the public domain for a time is a breath of fresh air for me. I would love it if the vice president just retire, and I'm saying we need to have an age of retirement for these politicians. We need to have articles and motions and policies signed that stipulates that there is a age of retirement for these politicians. Because I've come to find the older people get in the system, the more cruel they get, the more manipulative they get, the more callous they become. They don't care about the young people in this country. They only care about making sure that they can keep you subjected to them. In life, when you are someone in a position of power, you're someone in a position of authority, it's not to keep the people under you subjected for all of your time. It's to train the people through your actions that are under you, so that whenever times come that you pass on the baton, that they are able to be better than you. It's not to keep them subjected, to force your ideals onto them. It's to make them stronger, to empower them mentally, physically, intellectually, and spiritually. And I have to say, from me paying attention to everything that the vice president would have been saying, and this is prior to 2020, the vice president has not done that. He has forced on this totalitarian, fascist ideal onto our president, and now our president is running with it. So, I would like for the leader of the opposition to just leave the vice president alone. Focus on tabling motions. Focus on drafting policies. Focus on keeping consistent press conferences to update, educate, and liberate the minds of Guyanese people as to what is really going on in this country, because they have eyes to see, And when you're out there saying you have not heard from the vice president, why do you want to hear from the vice president? What does the vice president have to say that is so important in relation to the development and equitable transformation of this country, Mr. Azadeen Mohammed? We would love it if the vice president, the Attorney General, the Minister with responsibility for finances, the Minister of Governance, Gilkes, and all the other older people, just remove yourself from the political scene. Remove yourself from the political domain in this country and give young, vibrant people with better plans and better vision for all of Guyana to run it. So, Guyanese brothers and sisters, who is it hurting that the vice president isn't coming out and isn't speaking? It's surprising to me that Mr. Mohammed, who would have been saying that the vice president has such a fixation on him and has such a fixation on him and such an obsession over him, will be sounding just like the vice president now, because the vice president hasn't been around for a couple of days. Brothers and sisters, we need our opposition to do opposition work. And we need for the vice president and the minister with the Minister of Governance and the Minister with responsibility for finances and many of these older folks that have passed 70 and 65, we need for them to retire and leave this country alone. Give Guyanese people a chance to breathe and stop sucking the lifeblood out of this country. This is an Eternity Enterprise presentation. Y'all stay